welcome, and then we'll have the panel
Hi,
discussion.
everyone. Yes, thank you, Mark. Hi, everyone. Really delighted to be here, and thank you for joining in today. My name is Ram. My pronouns are he, him. So now you can end the sharing. And we're really delighted to have this conversation today, which is about intersectionality in inclusion, about fostering belonging for South Asian diaspora, particularly with the intersection of LGBT plus identities. This conversation is important because we are all intersectional and we all have different experiences with workplace, with our own selves, with our own heritage and background and family, and all of that intersects with beautiful messages to make us who we are. And today's conversation is about celebrating that diversity, understanding the unique nuances, and what can companies do to foster belonging for this community and this intersectionality. This webinar kicks off this conversation, which we are doing with a series of roundtables in the different cities. We are also doing a series of roundtables around supplier diversity the end of the month in August. So follow us to learn more about this if this is an area of interest for you. Thank you very much. And over to you, Koni, to take this forward. And thank you.
Thanks so much, Ram. It gives me so much pleasure to introduce our panelists today. Um, uh, we have a very illustrious lineup of panelists, and I'm really honored to be speaking with them today. I'd like to introduce Lux first. Lux Mann is MBE, is a creative strategist and award-winning DEI champion with experience across corporate, charitable, and public sector organizations. He currently works with the College of Policing on the National Talent Development Strategy and serves as an EDI advisor to the Mayor of London. Lux is the founder of Gasians UK and a trustee for South Asian Heritage Month and Kawa Charity. He was awarded an MBE in 2024 for services to charity integration and LGBTQ plus communities, and has received multiple honors, including the LGBT plus Trailblazer 2024 at the British LGBTQIA plus Awards, and recognition in the Diversity Power List of 2022-23. Lux, thank you so much for joining us. It's an honor to be at the panel with you. Then we have Puja. Puja is an HR associate director with 15 years of experience in aligning people strategies with business objectives. She leads Wipro Europe's DEI charter and focuses on fostering inclusive cultures and driving sustainable change in global organizations. She's based in the UK and comes from a rich Indian heritage. And Puja relishes the opportunity to contribute to Wipro's vibrant and diverse culture, which prioritizes community engagement and sustainability. Thank you so much, Puja, and lovely to see you and hear from you today. Thank you. Pragna is our last panelist for the day. She is an IT service management professional with over 25 years of experience. Her passion for diversity and inclusion began in 2013 when she joined an LGBTQ plus network. And since then, she has grown confident in sharing her story. As a South Asian woman, Pragna is proud to be part of a global support group for South Asian LGBTQ plus women. So thank you so much, Pragna, for joining us. As you can see, each of our speakers brings a very unique perspective that will help each of us explore various factors of intersectionality and inclusion. And their journey will help us, it will be invaluable in helping us explore intersectionality. And this particular intersection that we're talking about today, which is of South Asian identities and what it's like to be in the workplace. So I'd like to start by asking a question to Lux. Lux, your journey has been inspiring. It's obviously, of course, like all of us, been filled with challenges and triumphs. But we'd like to start with sort of asking you to share a personal experience of, how it is to be a South Asian LGBTQ plus person in the UK workplace. And hopefully that will help us understand the broader perspective on what it's like.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that. And yes, thank you for everybody joining in and for Pride Circle. So for those who are in the UK and obviously abroad, today is the start of South Asian Heritage Month. We literally launched this morning. So this is like one of the first events kicking off for myself and other members of the team to be on, and it's featured in our newsletter. And there's a sort of, the theme for this year is free to be me, which we are exploring. And there is the nuances within that about, are you free to be me? Do you aspire to be free to be me? Free to be me is a journey, as we say, it's not a destination. And so I think to answer the question where we're thinking about it in the workplace, I'm still on that journey. And what I would say is I'll sort of briefly start from a part in the past, which has led to some of the work that I've done to where I am now, to where the future is, if you like, a sort of past, present, and maybe into the future. Very quickly on the past side of things. So I am ex-corporate. I trained at PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers. I'm chartered accountant by trade, and I worked in international finance. And when I was in the London office, and I'm going back now, gosh, 20 plus years, when I was in corporate life, and I was in my late 20s, and I was starting to come out, but not in the workplace and not in the wider community and family circles. And I remember at work, I've been doing DEI work and inclusion and belonging work for over 25 years. And I was one of the co-founders of PwC's original and first ethnic minority forum in the UK over 25 years ago. And I was still a student in my training contract. So I was very much about race and ethnicity and social background, working class backgrounds in the workplace. But I couldn't see myself coming out in the workplace at that time. And I can remember, for those of us who are veterans on this call or watching on playback, there used to be a thing called Lotus Notes, which were these big, clunky databases, which you used to go in and connect. Just think of like social media in the dark ages. And we used to go onto these databases as a way of connecting and seeing things. And I can remember stumbling across this LGBT plus one. And I can remember just thinking, oh my gosh, wow. And this was people who were queer in the workplace, who were connecting and chatting, a bit like chat forums, and putting their contact details out there. And at the time, I was just blown away. I remember thinking, oh my God, I can't believe people are doing this in the workplace. So I was very much, like a secret, closeted at work, just checking in and dipping my toe in when nobody was looking and nobody could see my screen, as to, oh my gosh, this world exists where people are connecting. But I never thought that it could be me. Everybody who was in there was either white, and it was a global database as well. I don't remember seeing anybody that I could relate to or felt like I could reach out to, but it was a source of inspiration just to know it was there. If I then talk about the bit in the middle, I've been doing sort of a key focus on brown, queer intersections in the workplace and outside of the workplace. And for me, for that coming out, the fully coming out process and being who I am in the workplace and beyond, it's all fused and merged in the year. So I am who I am regardless, if I'm at work, if I'm outside work, with my family, with my friends. You obviously would dial up, dial down. If you see me in the club, you see a very different version of me. But in the workplace, I'm comfortable. People know me who I am, for who I am. And so that was important for me to push my intersection of being brown and queer and in the workplace. And so I've been a key member, and I still am, of ethnicity-based networks, faith-based networks. I'm Punjabi heritage, Sikh faith upbringing. I'm active in staff networks there. I've been on committees of LGBT plus networks. I have mentored people. I've driven people to be elected themselves and stand for election. I was the first South Asian and first Sikh heritage police officer to publicly speak openly about being gay. I was the first one to be elected onto the National Police LGBT plus network. So I've driven a lot of change within. And so for me in the workplace, I will just do what needs to be done. And if the platforms don't exist, I will create them, as I did with Gaysians UK. And if the existing platforms are there and they're not serving me or my people, I will get on the board and make change happen. So that's where I sort of am today. I've actually resigned from policing, so I only have 1 week left. I leave next Friday, the 26th of July. So it's the end of an era, 15 years in policing. after a corporate career and a charitable career and now a public sector career. So gazing forward into the future, I'm not quite sure what it will bring, but it will definitely be a step up. It will be more creative. It will be more strategic. And also for me, particularly in the workplace, is making sure that next generation come through. People, I've paved ways, I've blazed trails, I've opened doors. For me, it's about paying it forward, making sure those doors stay open, making sure that any seats that I currently have and may vacate are taken up by next generation. And I don't just mean young people, next generation of activists, regardless of what age or background you may be. So that's a quick hop, skip, step through past, present, and future.
Thank you so much, Lux. I think, it's really inspiring to hear your story, and really grateful to everything you've done for the queer community in the South Asian queer community in the UK. And I think that as we continue to speak about personal experience, I want to invite Pragna to share her experience on being a South Asian queer woman, because I'm sure that some of what Lux said, all of us could relate to, but as a woman, there's definitely something that must have been different in your experience. So please do share.
Yeah, thank you, Connie. And it's great to be here. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak to our audience and be part of this event. I think, you know what, when Lux was talking, I could relate to everything that Lux was saying. So I don't think it's generally, I don't think particularly about, you know, the difference in gender, etc. I identify as a, you know, a cis woman. And I guess my experience really of coming out, I mean, I have to go back quite far, but I've got little experiences of coming out. And this is one of the things that I think has, in some respects, taken its toll, because you don't just come out the once, you're coming out constantly. And actually, when Lux was talking, I remember I was, again, closeted in the workplace. I was really fearful that it was going to impact my career. It was going to impact my opportunities. I was scared of rejection and losing the support network that I've got. So my friends and my work colleagues, and, you know, who have become friends as well. So but I do remember, actually, when Lux was speaking, I remember this moment in the workplace, probably around about 2007. So up until then, I was not out in the workplace because I just didn't feel comfortable. I'm from a tech background, predominantly working as you can imagine, with men. And, you know, there's a lot of banter that goes on. It happens today. There's no change as far as that's concerned. But I just didn't feel comfortable. And I remember speaking to actually a HR manager at work. And we were having a coffee and we were just talking about the weekend and what we'd been up to, etc. And there was mention of being out with friends in Soho, and I was kind of like, is this manager trying to tell me something or encourage me to say something? I wasn't quite sure. So anyway, I then said, so are you, I didn't have to finish the sentence. And they said yes. And I was like, oh my God, this is such a relief. Like, I can just be myself. I'm not having to second guess conversations that I've had. I'm not having to second guess, oh, have I just outed myself? I didn't mean to do that, etc. And I think one of the features for me, which has been really key, and it takes time because obviously it's such a long journey, is rather than coming out, for me now, I have reframed that as to letting people in. So, you know, I don't have to share anything with you. However, if I am able to, and I feel comfortable enough to share, then I think it just means that, you know, I don't feel like I'm any different, but it just means that I'm sharing a part of my life that I want to share with you. And I'm comfortable with that, right? So it kind of gives me the power, as opposed to just being in this state of, oh, what am I going to say? What's going to happen, etc., etc. I mean, it's taken time to get there. And obviously that means that, you know, I have had help, professional help along the way. You know, I've had therapy. I think it's something, again, that we don't talk about enough within the South Asian community. I think it's always kind of glossed over. I had the same experience within my family. But on the other side, with my family, you know, I was born here. I'm from a Gujarati family. I'm a Hindu, and I'm really, really lucky that I have the family that I have, and that they were very open and loving. And I'm talking about my mum specifically, bless her. She's no longer with us, but you know, she was really, I would say, really open in her thinking. And I did ask her about this later, because it took her time to kind of get used to the idea of me being gay. And I couldn't actually even say the word to her. I just said I was not interested in being with a man. That's exactly what I said to her. And then she was like, oh, okay, I didn't expect you to tell me that, you know. And I said, well, I know that you're worried about me because you want me to settle down, etc. So a conversation for another time. But you know, she was really open. She took the time to understand. She took the time to speak to me and let me know how she was feeling, and me the same. So we, you know, we had a journey together up until the point that I had been on a journey by myself, essentially. But then I was able to take, you know, my parents on a journey with me too. So yeah, sorry, I've forgotten the question, but I hope that gives a little bit of just a little bit of an experience of me in my journey.
No, thank you so much, Pragna. I think you answered the question perfectly. It was about your experience as a South Asian woman. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And yes.
And I would like to add, actually, that, you know, up until I think I joined GIN, which is the Gay India Network, founded by Joshi, Mayank Joshi. I met Joshi just by chance at BFI Flair in South Bank. And I think up until that point, really, that was back in 2018. So GIN had just been founded at that point. We connected, we had a great conversation. And for me, it was really important that, you know, I be part of that space so that I can essentially be the role model for people like me that I never had growing up. So that's something that I'm really passionate about. Yeah, I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pragna. I think so many of us on the call could relate to what you said, and I really want to particularly thank you for bringing up the anecdote of your HR professional, because it helps us tie in Puja to the conversation. Because again, Puja, you come from this experience of a vast experience of as an HR professional. And I really want to ask you, how has your experience helped you support people from intersectional identities? And yeah, how can HR professionals follow suit on that?
Lovely. Thank you, Connie. So I firstly must acknowledge what beautifully inspiring personal stories you've shared, Lux and Pragna. It's actually very humbling to know that, you know, you're okay to share this in a wider audience where you don't really see everybody, right? But you're happy to share that, and I'm sure it really helps people, right? So while I am an ally to the LGBTQ plus community, I am straight. I have a husband. I have a 10-year-old. She's turning 10 tomorrow, actually, right? But I have friends who are part of the Indian community, and you know, who had similar stories. It's really great that you are sharing this with us. So thank you for that, Pragna and Lux, and thank you, Pride Circle, for giving me the opportunity to come here. So as HR professional, right? so as HR professionals, you know, I think we have a vast variety of things that we can do to support intersectionality at the workplace, right? So I've been lucky to have experience of working in India, in South Africa, Ireland, and I'm in the UK for the past 5 years now. And largely my experience has been in the HR field itself. So for me, if I see the journey of my role of being in the DEI profession was starting with firstly understanding what is intersectionality, right? A lot of times you'll see the DEI approach is very protected characteristic driven. You know, your aspirations, your targets, your measurements are very specifically women, or, you know, pride, or say disability, or carers, right? So we are very, we could be with those, you know, blinders on that I am targeting only the protected characteristics. However, thankfully, the conversation has moved from that, right? We are recognizing that there is intersectionality, like those Venn diagrams we learned when we were in school, right? So people, I am a woman. I'm of brown ethnicity, right? I could have caring responsibility. I could also be part of the pride community. So look at me in totality, right? Recognize that there are layers to me. It's not just the woman that I am here. There are multiple layers to me, and what I am today is because of these multiple layers. So firstly is recognizing that people are different. They come from different backgrounds. There is the race angle, there is caring aspect, there is probably an accessibility need, disability need, right? So recognizing that is very, very important. And then flowing it into the process of policies and processes, how you review processes, how you actually look at each and every career stage of an employee life cycle, as we say. Where does it matter? So from a recruitment standpoint, right? So you must understand that there could be an individual who is probably a lady who's also probably neurodiverse, right? So the way you would interview an individual who's neurodiverse will be different, right? So that person might also have caring responsibility. So you don't want to probably interview them bang at, say, the school pickup hour, right? So understanding that is very important. Another aspect which I feel linking to Pragna's story was creating that dialogue, space for dialogue, creating conversations. A lot of times HR is seen as the police, right? That, oh my God, they have come, why have they approached us? And I feel so bad about, I mean, we should be the people who are approachable, sharing information with us should be a safe space. That's what I strive to do. If somebody comes and speaks to me, I would want to create a safe space that we are able to converse, we are able to create that ecosystem wherein, we are able to dialogue with each other. Creating awareness sessions, a session like this, right? So we at Wipro, we ensure that on a monthly basis, there are platforms given to our people to share their own stories, bringing in external speakers. People are also, engaging, and this story sharing itself is like a therapy to people, right? Like as Pragna was saying, therapy is, we are not big on it, we just don't want to speak about it, right? It's too uncomfortable. But the fact is, when you speak openly, it is as good as therapy, right? And also, educating ourselves is very important, right? Attending webinars like this, reading about stories. In fact, a small quick story I'd want to share. So in the night, I read novels which are not related to work. I'm not one of those 7 habits of successful people. No, I'm not one of those people. I like to read light stuff, summary stuff, typical, a summer in Cornwall kind of a book. So I was reading this book, and it happened to be about this gentleman who's actually a trans woman, right? So weaving things, into your day-to-day lives, understanding that this is part of our life, that is very important. Educating is very important. And lastly, I think very importantly, we should be allies, and when I say ally, I mean active allies, not standing on the side and saying that, yes, let Lux do his own thing. I'm not stopping him, right? He can do his own thing. However, an ally is somebody who actively supports people, an ally to not just the pride community, but to women, but to those with accessibility needs and much more. So I know I've rambled on, but from an HR standpoint, when I think, these are a couple of things that we could do in the workplace to promote better understanding and belonging of intersectionality. Thank you, Koni.
Thank you so much, Pooja. I think what you touched on, especially about, I mean, if I can wrap it up, I think it means that it's having empathy actually for each intersection. And I think that point kind of shown through whatever you have shared with us. So thank you so much. I want to bring back the conversation to the barriers that South Asian people face and people of intersectional identities face. And I want to invite Lux to share some of the strategies you may have found that are effective in driving intersectional inclusion at the workplace.
Yeah, sure. I speak a lot about oxygen in the workplace, and following from what Pooja has said, and also Pragna, all too often we find that oxygen is lacking, and we therefore either look for the oxygen outside of work, or we go to other activities. But we spend so much time at work, so we have to make sure that we get that oxygen in the workplace. Now, that's easier said than done. Now, you can find other people, you can hopefully seek out a tribe, and obviously staff networks and ERGs are always a good place to start in terms of finding your tribe. But all too often, depending on the organization, depending on the sector, the maturity, you may find that the tribe isn't there. And so there's something there about who are those pioneers, who then starts, who starts the network, who initiates the tribe. That tribe could be you. And when you start it, and then other people are like, oh my God, here's that oxygen I was looking for. There's that person. There's my tribe. And one becomes two, and two becomes four, and what have you. So there's something about stepping up and being the change you want to see. I totally get that. But attached to that is that psychological safety about, is it actually safe for you to do that? Because for some people, it's very easy to be free to be me. They can just walk through work. They get a free pass on everything. Free to be me for them is just career currency. Whereas for other people, being out, being yourself, being too brown, being too black, being too queer, too much of a woman, too much religion, too much of everything, it's actually not going to go in your favor. So when organizations are saying, hey, come to work and be free to be me, it's like, well, actually, no, that's a bit too much. We didn't really mean that. So that statement is always qualified. Who gets to bring their authentic self to work without being checked and without being filtered? So I think what we have to look for is then creating that oxygen. Sometimes you have to delve deep. You probably have it within you, but you've got to self-sustain, put your oxygen mask on first before you help others. So you probably, first of all, have to go into yourself to think, is it there? It probably is, but you may not have had to search for it. And then what you're looking for is creating the spaces to be yourself. So if you're not being heard, if you're not being seen, it takes somebody to speak up. And I can remember I went to a book talk many, many years ago, and somebody in the audience was saying, well, I want to read this book about this story and that and that and that and that. And the person who was on the stage said, basically what you're saying to me is you want to read your story. And the person said, yeah, because I can't see anything that relates to me. And he said, well, don't wait for somebody else to write your story. Write it yourself. What are you waiting for? You're waiting for somebody to write something that you can read? Let others read what you have to say. So there is that bit of stepping up and stepping forward. And that means taking control of some of the spaces where we're in. So yes, you've got to remember the dominant cultures will control. Like Puja said, when we're looking at intersectionality, where there are people who are facing barriers, challenges, and hurdles, there are others who have the dominant culture, who have the upper hand, whether that's heteronormativity, whether that's white cultures, particularly, and that may apply to us in the UK, less so maybe if you're actually in some of the motherlands in South Asia, but it may well all too often be men and patriarchy. And, people with less abilities are always marginalized. So the dominant cultures will hold that upper hand. What you've got to then get to a point is, actually, we want to speak. We're not being allowed to speak. Where is the platform? And taking those opportunities, but doing it on the front foot. I have a martial arts background. And so for me, it's very much about stance. If you are on the back foot and you're asking, please, please, can I, that's a back foot stance. People will just push you back because they know you're not expecting to get anywhere. You can't really defend yourself. You're asking, please, please, off the back foot. If you're on the front foot is, I want this. We're not being served. This is not doing us justice. People suddenly see you and think, oh, okay, this person means business. This person has a stance. This person is not going to fall over or go sideways if I nudge them or push them. So in a martial arts analogy, you don't fight with somebody who you know is on a front foot stance because they know, okay, you came to play. Whereas it's a back foot stance, you can easily get brushed off. Oh, fine. No, there's no budget. Oh, come back tomorrow. Oh, I'm busy. Oh, yeah, try next year. Because people will read you from the get-go. Yes. So it is easier said than done. And sometimes it takes the collective, which is where the staff networks come in, the employee resource groups, is that collectively, as a strategy, you can go forward on a front foot stance, even though each of you maybe aren't able to. So the sum is greater than, the sum of the whole is greater than the individual parts. That synergy that comes from collective numbers, it's a phrase we use for a reason. Strength in numbers. So I think some of those strategies are very much about making sure that if you're not being served, who are the decision makers? Who has that privilege in the workplace? Most likely it's the people from the dominant cultures and who have multiple privileges because they belong to multiple dominant cultures. That just happens to be their intersectional identity. For other people, they happen to be on the multiple barriers and challenges and hurdles.
Yeah.
Even for us as brown queers, for example, and then brown queer women, and then brown queer women from working class backgrounds. So you start to see the layers of privilege. You start to see who holds the power and who has influence.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, many of us will probably only have influence. We may not have privilege. We may have some power, but we certainly will have some influence. And so it's just understanding that, for example, I'm a male, I'm cisgendered. So I belong to two dominant cultures right there. In those spaces, I have privilege. Within South Asian spaces, I'm Indian. I have Indian privilege, which goes above other South Asian nations. Even within Indian privilege, I am Punjabi background. I'm not going to lie. I have Punjabi privilege because particularly in the UK, Punjabis do dominate. There's privileges that come with that. So I have to be aware of what my privileges are, even at the same time when in other spaces I'm in the marginalized and the minoritized culture. So again, it's like looking into yourself and thinking, where have you got oxygen? Where do you need oxygen? And who are going to be your allies? Who are going to be your comrades? And if you need to, rally round, mobilize, synchronize, and get moving in the workplace. And then back to Pooja's point, my final point is, we can't do it alone. It's not for the minoritized people to make the change happen. It's for the dominant cultures. And that's where your allies come in, which is exactly what Puja had said before me.
Yeah, I think Pragna is doing pretty much that as well with your Pride Alliance, Pragna. So I'd invite you also getting conscious of the time and hoping to hear from everyone. So I would invite Pragna to share your experience as, leading the Pride Alliance in your organization and what specific initiatives or programs probably helped you access diverse voices in your organization.
Yeah, it's a bit funny for me to answer that question, only because I think what I do is my kind of purpose really is to make the workplace kind and to make it as inclusive as possible. And so for opportunities where I can then, speak to people, and Lux is absolutely right about being on the front foot, right? So sometimes some of these conversations that we've had as a Pride Alliance with the business, you just have to keep pushing, and it can be draining as well, right? So, but you have to keep pushing because, like I say, it's so important that people can come to work and just be themselves. And again, Lux is absolutely right. It's like, well, how much of themselves can they actually be? And I love the theme of South Asian Heritage Month, Free to Be Me, because it really spoke to me, and it actually made me realize it's taken me a long time to feel free to be me. And there's still much more work to be done in the workplace. So I do look for opportunities. I join forces with the other networks that we have in the organization. I'm looking to have conversations that are intersectional conversations. So we have, for example, a culture and ethnicity network. We have a neurodiverse network, just to name a few. And obviously, we've got the Pride network as well. So, we actually had launched recently a parents network. And I said, I really want to have a conversation in the workplace about LGBTQ plus parenting. So whether you are a parent and you identify as a member of the LGBTQ plus community, or whether you're a parent and you have a child who identifies as LGBTQ plus. Because I think these conversations are really important. And this is the thing, is like, even Puja said this, we have to have these conversations in the workplace, outside of the workplace, everywhere, so that it's just normalized. There shouldn't be any kind of stigma attached around having an LGBTQ plus child. They should be free to be themselves and live the life just like you would want to give them access to everything that they need so they can enjoy life, right? And make the most of the time that they have here. So we we do need to make a stand to, really support each other. And I say this to my network when we have regular calls, and I say we all should be allies. I can speak from my own experience, but I don't know what it means to be a trans person. So I need to, and I want to, and I am an advocate for trans people. And there's a lot of learning that comes along with that. I have to take responsibility for my own learning, for my awareness, joining panel discussions, taking those opportunities to learn, to talk, to share my experience. Yeah, essentially, just to summarize, I really want to, I have conversations with other members of the other networks so that we can join forces and we can bring awareness and education to the intersectionalities and the layers that Puja mentioned, and all the layers that we have, and how we can better support each other.
I think that's a truly intersectional approach that you've taken, Pragna, and thank you so much for sharing. Puja, I'd like to ask you the last question that I have from my end, and then we can open up for Q&A. But I wanted to ask you, what are some of the challenges you may have faced while implementing some of the programs that you said? Because a lot of what you said was about your intention and empathy that you have for the intersectional people in your organization, but how has it been challenging in terms of implementation?
Thank you, Connie. And I know we are conscious of the time, so I'll make it quick. I think the biggest challenge in a global organization that I'm working in currently is the cultural differences, right? So how a Wipro India operates is very different than how a Wipro Europe operates, right? And I'm sure this is with majority of the organization. So we are global, right? But we have to think local. Example's sake, Pride Month, massive things planned everywhere. We are working the London Pride Parade. In India, our offices, there are Pride parades and there's Pride Bazaar, and all of that is happening. However, in the UAE region, there was not even a word of it, right? Because culturally in that region, it doesn't really work so well, right? So the cultural differences, if you see, that's probably the first barrier to run things at a global level. However, given, again, intersectionality, culture, race, ethnicity, so it is important, while you may be a global organization, it's very important to think locally what lands well and what doesn't land well. So that could be the first barrier, but I think in that barrier, there is an opportunity, right? So making things work for us, the way it might seem like a barrier to you, but make it work for you, right? So in the UAE, probably this program didn't work very well. However, our women network programs work very well, right? So you have to take that opportunity, right? That it's all right. Some things may not land well. So that was the first thing that I've experienced. Second is very rampantly I have noticed is resistance to change. Why are you guys even doing this? We are sick and tired of your DEI and, inclusion and diversity. Why does it even matter in a workplace? So that first, to, make people understand that it's important for everyone, right? Inclusion is important for everyone. While watching movies, there are those closed captions, right? You can see it. I understand English, but I still put it on because it's just that sometimes I don't catch an accent, right? It's just that sometimes I might miss something. So having those closed captions was earlier made for those with hearing disability. However, it's used by everyone, right? So making people understand that these reasonable accommodations are actually useful for everyone. And the wider you're able to make the circle of inclusion, there is more talent that comes in the organization, right? People are upfront about things. You must have probably read that report that 30% of the newer generations are openly speaking about being part of the Pride community, either as allies or themselves, right? So it's very important from a talent lens also to be able to accommodate everyone and not be stuck up about, why do you even need this, right? So that's the second thing. Thirdly, what I've seen is unconscious bias. A lot of times, including myself, I've had bias, and you have to actively work on it. I might just think that, he's a gentleman. He probably doesn't have to take care of his kids. Probably his wife is doing it. But actually he's probably a single man, right? So taking that unconscious bias out of your mind, and that actually happens when you create platforms for conversations. When people open up and share their stories, that's where the unconscious bias goes away. So that's one difficult one to tackle, but consistent training, talking about it, I think that's the way to deal with it. And lastly, very important, because culture is top down, it's the leaders at the top who need to be actually taking actions of being truly inclusive and not doing it for a token tick mark, right? And these are your diversity numbers, this is your target, achieve it. But okay, you hire people and you bring them in, but how do you actually make them feel totally embedded in the system, right? So from top down, if you see the leaders are doing something well, you will see the next levels also, trying to emulate that. So I will stop at that, because I believe Q&A will be a lot of fun. So I'll stop there, Koni. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pooja. I think we could really agree with all of what you said, because that's been our experience as well in the Indian market, that, from companies, for anything to really make a change, we need to have buy-in from the top, and also consistent action, which I think you highlighted beautifully. So we've had, an incredibly interesting and insightful discussion, and thank you to all our panelists for bringing those insights in. I'd like to open the question and answer session now. Just to open, actually, we already have a question that someone had already asked us, so I'm just going to put that in the chat so everyone can also see. But it says, how do you encourage LGBTQ plus BAME colleagues who are not as comfortable being open about their sexuality to participate in the organization's LGBTQ plus employee network?
Shall I start with that one?
Sure, yes, please.
Sure. Sorry, my bandwidth is a bit dodgy, but I'll do my best. But you can still hear me, right?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So this is really tricky, because Puja kind of, shared this already in terms of, certain cultural sensitivities. I work for a global organization as well. So my role as the Pride Alliance lead was global. And we did face some challenges in certain regions across the organization. And I think, as much as I would love to just push everyone and go, come and join, come and join, come and join, that doesn't work. People have to feel comfortable in themselves to want to be able to join. And I've had some people come to me and say, I just want to kind of stay on the periphery and just kind of know what's going on. But I may not just be very active in the meetings and etc. And I said, that is totally fine. You bring what you can, and if you want to get more involved, come and have a chat with me or speak to your regional lead. And this isn't about even pushing people to just be open about their sexuality in the workplace. This is, I just, even for where it's challenging in those regions and it's culturally sensitive, what I've said is, we're not going to stop sending out emails to the region. If you want to not receive those emails, then you can put your own rules in place in Outlook. We're not going to do that, because I want people in that region to know that if they do identify as a member of the community, I want them to feel safe in the workplace. So they know that when they're at work, they're safe. If they need someone to talk to, we have a buddy program. So we have, and again, this is all volunteer led. Within the UK itself, we have a mental health Avengers program, again, volunteer network. And we wear a different color lanyard, so we're visible in the workplace, which was a bit tricky, obviously, over the pandemic, but we made sure that we had a banner around our profile photo on Teams. So if people wanted to reach out to us, they could speak to a member of their mental health Avengers. So I just make sure that they know the services that are available in the workplace to support them if they need someone to talk to, professionally or informally. And this is really not about pushing that kind of come and join the network. It's really about creating a safe, comfortable space so they know they're safe, and they have a support network if they need it.
Thank you so much for that, Pragna. That was a really nice bit of input. I think, unfortunately, we are approaching time. So rather than sort of go into any of the Q&A, I'm sure we've got loads of really exciting questions and lots of sort of really interesting answers you could get from any of our panelists here today. I am conscious of everybody's time. So we're going to wrap it up shortly. But I just thought before we do, it'd be great if just in like 1 or 2 sentences, the 3 of you wanted to make any final closing remarks just on thoughts from today. I just invite you to kind of wrap anything up that you any thoughts you had. I'll yeah. Pragna, you want to go first? That'd be great.
Sorry, I was just going to say, no, it's been great to be part of this panel and to be alongside Lax and Puja and obviously Pride Circle. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Thank you for listening, and I hope we get the opportunity to do this again soon and keep that conversation going. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Pragna. That's really lovely. I'll hand over then to Lax for any closing remark you might have. Any questions?
Yeah, sure. And thanks again for this. And with every webinar, there's never enough time, but it is just about making time, making space, and understanding that, you know, if the space doesn't exist, is creating it. And it starts with one person and it grows. Any staff networks that come up, which has been mentioned, you know, sometimes they're handed down, they rely on a lot of volunteer energy. It comes and goes. So it's important to be that oxygen for yourself and for others. And then just finally, just engage with South Asian Heritage Month. I put an event in the chat. Please do look into that and go to the website for more about South Asian Heritage Month. And for Pride Circle, if you're doing anything more, please do reach out to the South Asian Heritage Month team. There's some good stuff happening.
That's lovely. Thanks. And really inspiring as well. Thanks, Lex. And then finally, Puja, have you got anything else you'd like to wrap up with?
Well, I've enjoyed this thoroughly, right? So I completely enjoy speaking with people, you know, drawing on that energy, you know, and hearing Pragna and Lux. It's been brilliant. So I have learned a lot today, right? That be more empathic. There should be more compassion in what you do, right? So thank you for putting this together. And it's important to take out time. That's the only thing, you know. I was just thinking, you know, there's so many meetings are there, customer calls, there are escalations. It will always be there. It will never be a quiet time. So make time for things that are important. And I'm really glad the 30, 40 people who joined us for taking out time for this. You know, and thank you for Pride Circle for enabling this platform.
Thank you so much, Puja. And I'm just going to echo that. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you, everybody, for engaging, for a really fascinating discussion. Lots of really nice learnings. And I think everybody feels like that's even a great starting point to shift off into the rest of South Asian Heritage Month. Hopefully find plenty more opportunities to engage. Please, everybody, do keep in touch. Obviously, for the events that people have posted in the chat and the kind of upcoming things, please do carry on taking a look. And the same goes for our Pride Circle events. If anybody is, if you have colleagues over in any of the cities we're going to be visiting, if you yourself would like to come along to any of the roundtables, please drop us a message. We'd love to have continue this conversation, go deeper in our in-person conversations about this particular topic. And then for any of those upcoming areas which do affect all members of our community, when that comes to, we're going to have some upcoming things on supply diversity, on sort of on tech and AI bias, on lots of different areas where we can sort of really dive into these areas of conversation. So yeah, keep an eye on the upcoming events. Please keep coming back. And thank you everybody for a lovely conversation. It's been a lovely morning, lovely end to our morning.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you everybody. We're going to sign off. Goodbye, thank you.
Know how busy we are.